Speaking of locations to film, Will, didn't you have something?
Yeah, so I wanted to talk about something a little controversial, but we're not going to get into too much of the politics. But I figured that this affects movie and TV news, that it's worth bringing up. And this is
a movie and TV news style thing.
And this is a thing we do about movie and TV news.
Dude, so I didn't get enough water. You have way more water than me in your cool mason jar.
Maybe we could pause and go get some more.
I'm just teasing.
So... Okay, I'm gonna read. I found this little bit in here that I wanted to read.
Where'd you find it at?
It's Democracy Now, and I felt like it's pretty.
No, that's great. I just wanted you to be able to source it just in case.
Okay, so I wanted to read like what this bill is, and then how Hollywood's reacting. And so. It says, in Missouri, Republican Governor Mike Parsons signed into law a bill banning abortions at 8 weeks of pregnancy. The bill does not make exceptions in cases of rape or incest. It also includes a provision that would completely ban abortion at any stage if Roe v. Wade is overturned. Architects of the bill, as well as similar bills in Alabama and other states, say they're aimed at overturning Roe v. Wade, the landmark 1973 Supreme Court ruling that recognizes the constitutional right to an abortion. And so, so this whole thing in Missouri is going on. As a result, Hollywood, a bunch of celebrities immediately took to the press and started vocalizing their opposition to this and how they wanted to boycott being a part of any film projects that are taking place in that state. And so
in Georgia, right?
Yeah. So some of them include Alec Baldwin, Don Cheadle, Ben Stiller, Gabrielle Union, J.J. Abrams, Ron Howard, Alyssa Milano, and tentatively Jason Bateman. He actually said that if it goes into effect that he's not going to film there. And for Jason Bateman, it's kind of interesting because he's part of the TV show, the Netflix show, Ozarks, which films there. And so at first you had all these actors vocalizing, speaking out against it. And then
think about Alyssa Milano though, really quick.
Yeah, like
what is she doing?
She's just an activist most of these days.
I won't film nothing in Georgia if nothing calls and says, "Hey, we've got a job for you." Yeah. It's like, okay, thanks, Alyssa Milano.
What was the last thing she ever was in? I don't know. I think more than anything, she's just an outspoken activist these days. Yeah. But it's more of like the principle of the thing. Of course. I
just want to make fun of the fact that Alyssa Milano won't work in Georgia because she's working so much.
Georgia's like, yeah, we're good.
They're like, yeah, thanks. Keep it. Hang out wherever you live in your apartment.
But so at first it started with all these celebrities, but then the Netflix content officer, his name's Ted Sarandos, and we actually talked about him before on this podcast. He actually came up and he says, this is a quote. He goes, "We have many women working on productions in Georgia whose rights, along with millions of others, will be severely restricted by this law." And so he decided that if Georgia goes through with it, they want to suspend all Netflix filming in Georgia, which is a big deal because they have quite a few shows that film there. I started looking into what will the effects of these be. So one thing you need to know historically is that Georgia actually wanted to attract a lot more cinema to the state. And so they were giving up to 30% tax credits to the people that would come and film there. Yeah, they were able to outbid everybody that's not Hollywood. So what you get is a lot of states that will essentially tell filmmakers, like, you come and you do your film in our state, and then we'll essentially reduce your taxes in that state. And so it saves them a lot of money, which allows filmmakers to potentially make more profit. And so due to 30% tax credits, they attracted more than 450 film and TV projects just last year. This is Georgia, driving more than $4.5 billion in wages and having an economic impact greater than $9.5 billion. Like this is a lot of cheddar that we're talking about. $9.5 billion. And some of the projects that are included in Georgia alone are like Disney's Black Panther. You got the Avengers Infinity War film there, the AMC's Walking Dead, like we mentioned, Ozark, but even shows like Queer Eye and Haunting of Hill House recently had shot there. And so it's a very popular place. And I think for certain shows like Ozark, where the location is such
it's a
big,
huge character.
it's essentially a character in the show itself.
Absolutely.
That could become a potentially big problem.
Now that Atlanta, what's that show?
On FX.
I love Atlanta. Love it.
That's a show about Georgia.
Yeah.
So that's now technically Disney property. Because
yes.
it's FX, yeah. So now Disney owns it. So Ted Sarantos has said basically, so I pulled this up from Variety, that basically that they would rethink if the bill is passed. They would consider and rethink and, look at it. Because here's the deal.
I find that interesting because I'm not going to try and I don't want to polarize the 6 people that listen to this.
That's true. We don't want to lose 3 of the 6 potentially.
So I don't want to take a very strong position on either side. But I will say that I find it interesting that a lot of the people in Hollywood are kind of using this as a platform to it's weird because you can look at this 2 ways. You can either say it almost feels like extortion. It feels like, we're out unless you kind of do what we want.
Yes.
And so it feels like they're kind of strongholding them. And for how much money's at play, like it would be a huge loss to Georgia if they lost out on all this potential income into their system. You gotta consider how it affects the economy. You get these huge film crews going there, and then they're also buying from all the local businesses. They're staying in
hotels,
local hotels, and
the economy of Georgia is outside of the $9 billion the government's getting in tax credits. It's the local man, it's the everyday guy, the boom mic operator who's genuinely being affected by this. It's his livelihood that's being held in the balance of something that he doesn't really have a part in or a say in potentially.
Mm-hmm. And it's I find it interesting. I obviously they're allowed to do this. It's not a big deal. Like, they can choose to do business in any state they want. And if there's a state that doesn't reflect their morals and values, go for it, pull out. But it's going to be interesting to see how this shakes out because it's making waves right now in the film industry. Mm-hmm. And it can potentially have implications to the future of certain shows.
I think it's interesting that entertainment can become a moral compass. The entertainment industry may have a say in the moral compass of laws being made. It's like at that point, is entertainment like a deity? Right.
According to those involved, they sure think it is.
Well, you get a lot of people that say, we don't want places like California telling all of us what to do and how we should live our life.
It's those people in the Capitol. Those people with all the makeup
and the big city,
the
the Capitol. Exactly, like Hunger Games.
Those froofy people in the Capitol.
And so you got Hollywood, the people at the Capitol that are telling all the districts how to live their life. And some people are like, we don't like that. We'll see how it shakes out.
So, Disney's now jumped on as well, right? So Bob Iger...
I did not know that.
Yeah, Bob Iger jumped in and said, he said it would be, quote, very difficult for the content giant to remain in the face of legislation, to remain in Georgia in the face of this legislation passing. The bill seeks to obviously ban the abortion, blah, 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 blah. He goes, I rather doubt we will, he continued, in regards to staying in Georgia. Dude. I think many people who work for us will not want to work there anymore, and we will have to heed their wishes in that regard. Right now, we are watching it very carefully.
And they had a lot of Marvel.
So, but you got to think, though, nobody's smarter than Disney. Disney goes, and I can't speak for Bob Iger, but the guy knows how to make money. Mm-hmm. So if he can't get a 30% tax credit from Georgia, he'll make somebody else do it. Or he'll wait till this kind of fizzles out, when it's got its news cycle.
Yeah.
Like everything does, unfortunately. Good causes and bad causes. They had that, that day in the sun, that 24-hour news cycle. And then we kind of move on. And, James Gunn can get rehired. People can go back to work.
You know what it might turn into?
Here's the thing, though. Sorry, this will be super fast. All I'm going to say is that if if they really are and they design this to go after Roe v. Wade, I think that this issue is only going to get much larger, especially as we're getting closer to the presidential race. And this can be a very big topic in the upcoming election. And it can be a very polarizing issue in this country. I think it's going to be one of those that we talk about a lot, much like immigration currently is.
Right.
So, you know how when actors or actresses have done something and, you know, they kind of get boycotted / blacklisted by Hollywood, right? Based on things they did.
Yes.
It's like, at what point are we going to see locations and think, this was filmed there? I can't support this. I can't watch this. You know what I mean? At what point are we going to start boycotting shows?
You're going to get that. That's going to be the next phase of
people
this.
Will be like, well, we'll boycott, because I mean now it's got enough of a voice that people can go, we'll boycott you if you don't boycott them.
So in a few weeks, we're going to be probably talking about some crew that decided to film there anyways, and how everybody's trying to boycott from seeing that said film in theater.
It's like on that Seinfeld where Elaine is in love with the delivery, the truck delivery man. He's like moving the couch for Jerry.
Right.
And then it's the abortion episode.
Yes.
And Jerry asks, you know, well, if we're boycotting this pizza place because they support, you know, they're anti-abortion, what does your boyfriend think? Have you asked him? Like, has that, you know?
Yeah.
And, you know, she asks him, he ends up being anti-abortion, she's pro-abortion, and so she breaks up with him at that point. You know, it's just it's interesting to see that ripple effect. You know, whether or not the big decisions are made, it's that judgment being passed and seeing it passed on a location versus just people. You know,
and that's what's hard. I mean, there's such a human element to the issue, unfortunately, on all sides, that it kind of feels like everyone's gonna lose. You know, to some degree or another.
That's got to be just a pain in the ass. Like being an artist and having to
like
worry about what your opinion on something is and whether or not you'll scare people away or whatever.
Right. You have to decide, to be a part of this community, do I feel like, because I mean, it seems like people that aren't liberal in Hollywood will come out as not liberal and then immediately get destroyed by everyone else. So you're either a part of the conglomerate or you're no longer a part of it.
You're either part of it
or it's not like I'm a healthy host with a malignant cancer. It's like the cancer's looking for the healthy guy in some regard. I'm not saying, you know, politically one way or the other, but it kind of feels strange that if somebody has a differing opinion, all of a sudden, right now, that differing opinion is the worst thing imaginable. And it's kind of scary.
It's tribalism.
But I mean, it's so annoying. I hate that this is happening, and I feel bad for everybody that has a legitimate stake at it. Women in Georgia in certain situations unable to make a choice potentially, and people who are just like, man, I'm just some guy.
What does Hollywood? Does Hollywood say it's okay? I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm glad I'm not in that position. I don't have to make that decision.
That show / book, The American Gods. It's like
the
idea of like entertainment industry as like a god. You know, it's like we're almost doing that.
For sure. One of the ways I think it reflects
if you look to your God for like moral,
I think one of the places where it's reflected the most is in the idea of vanity, and I think Hollywood is the epitome of vanity, and I think that our adoration towards Hollywood has actually shifted our society from being an honor culture to a celebrity culture.
Yeah, where we're just so desperate for somebody else's life and excitement. And
idols.
Yeah.
Dude.
think about what these idols are, man.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Idols.
Like, think what they do. Think of how long, Harvey Weinstein existed in that world.
He probably thought he was untouchable.
And he was untouchable. Think for how long he was absolutely untouchable, and no one could do a single thing about it.
No, and it's great.
That's Hollywood.
It's great to see that power shift towards.
It's an amazing thing.
Towards like
these people now get that voice.
Getting rid of the
monsters.
Draining the swamp, right?
Yeah, but that's a big swamp, and there's more than effing Harvey Weinstein there. Because if Harvey Weinstein can get away with it that long, there's 10 other Harvey Weinsteins.
Isn't Georgia full of swamps and gators?
Yeah, they're getting a lot of snakes now too.
Dude,
a lot of pythons.
I once saw a video of a goddamn alligator in Georgia that climbed a chain link fence. Did you know they can do that?
No.
Dude,
How the hell is it going to climb a
it
chain link fence? You
climbed-
thing's like 340 pounds.
It climbed
It
a
doesn't have
fence.
fingers, dude. It's got these little tiny claws.
Dude, like
What's it doing? This?
Like a
it can
gecko.
barely effing
Like
move.
a gecko. It just
So it's going
up
one.
the
It's one
chain link
chain at a
fence.
time because it
Kinda
can
whips
barely
its
move its
tail
fingers.
And then
around
when
the-
it got to the top, it just kind of like
It
threw
just like
itself.
hot dogged over.
Yeah,
it just
over.
rolled out of the bun.
Yes, it scared the shit out of me though, because I was
Dude,
like, they
have,
can climb.
Have you ever seen them in
have
the
you
winter?
seen-
Their nose is right here, and they freeze. And they just stay in ice with their nose sticking out.
Nice.
And they'll just stay there. And then they're frozen
they're
solid for
like-
however long.
They're
and then
like
they
the
thaw
most.
out.
They're one of the most unchanged
they go all
species
Han
for like
Solo?
millions of years. They're basically dinosaurs.
Yeah. But they can't.
They
they're
go all like
but apparently
in the
they can climb a-
carbonite,
try
and they
climb a
just
chain link
freeze
fence.
until the
Yep.
next
And
season.
then they F and thaw in
Nuh-uh.
Return of the Jedi, and they're fine. They can
That's
come out of the
so
carbonite.
badass.
Certain
Boom.
fish do that. Yeah.
But it's gross. Yeah, they'll show videos, and then you'll just see the two nostrils sticking out.
Have you guys
And they're
seen
frozen solid.
the trailer for that new Killer Croc movie?